So, Dr. Badrul, tell us about the COVID vaccine that's been brought in. Pfizer, Moderna, and now Sinovac from China as well. Will we be considering even bringing in the Sputnik? And if so, why?
Okay, that's a very tough question. Like I said, we need to be protected. Vaccination will trigger your immune system to develop antibody, and we need to go back to the normal life, like pre-COVID times. For now, one thing for sure, every single vaccine gone through a very detailed clinical trial. Okay, it goes through the safety, efficacy, and quality aspect evaluation, and there's no shortcut about that. For those vaccines who are able to fulfill the minimum requirement, the national regulatory agency like KKM or NPRA will evaluate that filing applications. They will look into that three major aspects. They have the minimum requirement, and if it's actually approved, and the vaccine, regardless of from which company or what formulation, they're deemed to be safe, efficacious, and of certain quality, then we should have no hesitation to accept it.
But what do they do that's different that we need to get all 4 different kinds of vaccines? Do they do the same thing, basically?
Yeah, it's slightly different. The basic concept is that you have to trigger your immune system to recognize the COVID-19 in this case. Yeah, basically our body have to be introduced with you don't want the live infectious coronavirus to enter your body, but we introduce either kill vaccine in the case of Sinovac and a few other companies. They use the inactivated coronavirus. In the case of recombinant protein, parts of the molecules actually introduced so that our body would be recognizing that this is how the coronavirus looks like. And then our immune system will develop antibody against that. In the case of Moderna, that's totally new technology. Same goes for Pfizer. They are actually putting in the code that telling our cells to make that protein imitates the structure of coronavirus. In that sense, the genetic code is actually introduced, but this is a new vaccine, obviously.
Okay, so again, I sort of just going off the back of what JD was asking. You know, we understand the idea of maybe bringing in 2 different kinds of vaccines just for the deployment and the rollout, just because of where, you know, the rural and urban areas and all the rest of the stuff. But apart from that and outside of that, what would be the logical reason to have a variety, like a buffet of vaccines, if we aren't able to get the choice, right? And if they're going to be doled out, will there be a problem with that? And, you know, why in the first place do we need that?
That's a very interesting way to look at it. I fail to look from that perspective. Basically, when we had the outbreak started in late 2019, and especially in early 2020, all vaccine producers, these are the seasoned players. They have the technology, they have the known way of how to make vaccine for different disease. So the moment that we realize that we need a vaccine, every single company is like rushing to develop one formulation. So you cannot do something that is not familiar to you. They use their own existing technology, which was proven to different vaccine design. So like Moderna, they've been working, and Pfizer, they've been working on mRNA-based vaccine for different disease and different treatment. Same goes with Sinovac. They've been making vaccine based on inactivated. Oxford Zeneca, they've been using adenovirus-based vaccine. So they're using their expertise, ready platform, the terms called platform, and design a vaccine that can be materialized to protect against coronavirus. And over a year, and we have seen the result of the clinical trial, phase 1, phase 2, moving on to the registration. Now that we know that a few products have successfully registered in certain countries, now it made available for the public for immunization program.
But again, and I bring it back to this point, sorry, I still don't feel sort of clear, is why do we have to bring in so many different ones? So I give a different analogy. When you go to have say a tetanus or another kind of vaccination, mumps, measles, rubella, whatever, we aren't aware of who makes it.
The bread.
We're just given that as that particular thing. right? But
Exactly.
now obviously the spotlight's on, and all of this has been a race to who can develop it first and stuff. So we as a public are more familiar with the different types of it. And as you said earlier, they don't all work in the same way. So I guess for coming from a public standpoint is, which vaccines are we choosing for our Malaysian people? And how does it make sense to have four when, you know, I can't go, okay, I want the Moderna when that's not available to me, but maybe someone in, you know, Bangsa or Taiping can have access to, do you know what I mean? So it's that's the question really. Why so many? Why a buffet if we can't
Yeah.
pick and choose? And what the intention of having the different kinds of vaccines with different workings? That's not very
Okay.
technical, but you know what I
Okay.
mean?
Yeah, I got it clearly. Basically, in the current pandemic situation, either you take it or you don't. You don't want to mess up. And the same goes with the vaccine manufacturer. When they develop the vaccine, they want to get to the finish line as quick as possible, but they're not cutting corners. Basically, they with the current situation, everyone to have a jab. Yeah, you imagine that the entire population of the world is about 7 billion who will get it first, and the vaccine wouldn't get it for free, but the government would have to sponsor at the discounted price. Then imagine like even in Malaysia, the first vaccine that now being registered is Pfizer conditional approval. Pfizer won't be able to deliver the entire dose for the entire Malaysian population. So the government would want to secure vaccine. So part of the negotiation by the government to various vaccine manufacturers is to secure a supply. So the government cannot rely on one single source of supplier, then relying, then thinking like, oh, at the risk of the population that you might not get it. Like you heard about the case of Australia, where they were like working with a local manufacturer, and they realized that the vaccine availability will be like 1 year later than now. And can you really afford to wait that long for your country? So the government is doing a right thing, negotiating with several suppliers who gets there first, and there'll be an immunization program for the country. So and depending on the types and design of the vaccine, we know that some logistic issues may also be there. Some would require minus 70 logistic, of which very impossible to have it delivered to certain parts of our country. But generally, any pharmaceutical product or normal vaccine, that can be easily handled for normal refrigeration temperature, 2 to 8. So imagine that you want to ship some vaccine to Pahang, Terengganu, Kelantan, and maybe Sabah, Sarawak. Obviously, if you were to handle it with minus 60, minus 70 degrees Celsius for a bulk, these cryo preservation techniques is tough because it's made scientifically. You know that you cannot control the temperature without that to control the quality of the product. Yeah, you
But
cannot
basically,
compromise. Yeah.
we as the rakyat don't get to choose what we get. It's
Yeah.
just
It's not like a buffet then, it's like a potluck so that there's
yeah,
enough of
depending on
everything.
where you are and
Yeah.
And
who
what,
gets it, right?
yeah, okay.
But so
Yeah. Yeah.
basically, it's like if you're a contractor and then you ordered nails for this particular project and you ran out of nails, you have to get nails from someone else. It works the same way. It's still a nail, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
see.
That
Okay.
painting still will go up.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
In the current situation, you don't have much choice.
Yeah.
Basically,
Okay.
like, but the government will ensure that the second boost that you will get the exact same vaccine to ensure effectiveness of
Okay.
the
You
vaccine.
still get a second nail.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So just before we move on to the next sets of questions, this is just one. Obviously, we're all doing reading and checking the news and stuff like that. And there, I read something or came across something where people are having conversations about whether this is a vaccine or it's a therapy. So could you clear that up in terms of the argument that this is not a vaccine per se, this is a therapy and should be called as that?
No, by definition, vaccine is to protect you from getting the infection and progressing into a disease. Therapy is when you already been infected, you're progressing into a disease and you treat it with drugs.
But
Like
technically, though, the vaccine doesn't prevent you from getting it, right? The
from
vaccine is.
yeah, in this case, preventing it from progressing into a disease. In the case of COVID vaccine, there's still a possibility that you get infection if you're exposed to it, even though that you're being immunized, but you will not progress to being sick. Yeah, you may get some mild condition of infection, but you won't. That will be determined by the efficacy of the particular vaccine, how
So
effective it is.
it's like a shield, but you get a small shield. It doesn't.
Yeah, you may get some discomfort,
Okay.
but it won't progress into that you need hospitalization.
Oh,
Have we
That
had
is
any
how they measure. Yeah.
Okay, have we had any cases of those who've been a part of trials who've received the vaccine who've then actually gone on to develop COVID, and what their experience of having COVID is like after being vaccinated?
Yeah, that is the exactly how they actually interpret the clinical trial phase 3 data. Um, how many that of those being vaccinated and how many of those that were receiving placebo. Basically, it's just ratio of those being vaccinated with the real vaccine, how many being infected and progress into disease. So basically, that's the ratio. That's how they calculate the efficacy of each vaccine design.
Okay, so we're talking about sort of trials and phase threes. Malaysia will be conducting its own first phase three clinical trial for COVID-19 vaccine. And the Ministry of Health is looking for 3,000 healthy adults for the study. The trial, which is to be conducted at selected hospitals throughout the country, is aimed at studying the effectiveness and safety of the COVID-19 vaccine. How will the 3,000 be divided as to which vaccine they'll receive? Is it based on age, health,
can we
lifestyle?
volunteer? How does it
Yeah.
work?
Who's going to be choosing?
Yeah, in general, is half will receive a placebo and half will receive the vaccine. They will monitor those volunteers has to be very healthy, age between 18 to 60, unless the sponsor or the manufacturer or the owner of the vaccine would want to expand it into different age group, different health condition, they may. But I believe for 3,000 volunteers, they may just pick the healthy volunteers aged 18 to 60, and they will monitor the infection and how it progresses into a disease.
But
And
also,
compare those being
sorry, continue. Yes, please continue. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, just they will measure the ratio between those receiving the vaccine and those receiving the placebo in terms of infection and disease progression.
How long does a typical phase three, or I should use the word typical because nothing is
It's not
typical
typical, right?
about
No.
times, but
Yeah.
how long is the phase three clinical trial going to be for?
I'm not fully aware of the protocol of which they're going to
Can
use
I can I just
formulation.
pause you 1 second? I'm so sorry, but that phone is really quite loud coming
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Can you just kill that call? Because the vibration, I can hear it. It's
Shall I repeat?
Yeah. Okay.
yes,
Cool.
go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, related to the protocol of which they're going to conduct clinical trial phase 3 in Malaysia, I do not have access to the protocol. But generally in clinical trial, the volunteers will be divided into two groups. Half will be receiving the placebo, another half will receive the vaccine. They will monitor these healthy volunteers aged between 18 to 60 will be monitored to randomly how if they are infected or exposed to the COVID vaccine, COVID-19, and if they're being infected, if they will be monitored for some indication. Yeah, if you indicate if you are like having a fever, sore throat, based on that, they will have to take a swab test and test for PCR to confirm that they're being infected. And then the ratio of those being receiving the vaccine and those or not will be calculated. So,
Um, this is maybe a very silly question, but if you're doing something like a trial like this, where it's sort of the phase three, do you get the vaccine and or the placebo and then be infected with the virus to see how it measures, or is it something that
No. You don't do that. You
You
receive
basically
a
don't infect
placebo.
people.
yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
well, just
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of
Yeah.
people are wondering,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
how do you know? Do you then
No,
give
no,
them
no.
the
You
yeah,
work like a normal life. You go to work, go to school, go to wherever.
sit at home, eat too much?
Yeah, stay at home, or you protect yourself.
Yeah.
But you have to record if you are being infected, and
Okay.
from with PCR.
All right. So, like, just talking about these 3,000 people, you mentioned the words, healthy and between a certain age range. I'm just wondering for the public in terms of the vaccine as well, because obviously they're going to be having it, and we're going to be wondering about who's safe to take it and who isn't, and conversations around that. What are the contraindications of this drug? I.e., we've heard that there's going to be a comprehensive list of self-checking against allergies, like a comprehensive ingredients list, for want of a better word. And also, against other medications and illnesses they may have. Is this a safe protocol relying on the individual when a lot of the problem we've had is people not even being able to put on a mask? How then more for them to read a list of ingredients and go, oh, yes, I'm taking that, it's not safe for me, or,
Okay, just give a little bit of background. The very first thing before you conduct the clinical trial phase 3, there's a study called preclinical, where the animal
Sorry.
toxicity.
The line just kind of went a bit bad for a while. There's a clinical trial called what?
Before clinical trial, prior to that, the vaccine manufacturer has to develop preclinical study in animal. So you look at the safety. The safety data is very critical for the medical team to look at whether the formulation will give any side effect or any toxicity to the animal. That is the first clearance they have to do. And then phase 1 and phase 2 also go into detail. How is that healthy volunteer will, if they are developing any safety issue before you conduct into phase 3. So that aspect has been taken care of in terms of the formulation. But what they want to see in phase 3 is very much about the protection, whether in general population or specific group will be protected against the progression to disease.
Right. So that's sort of about the efficacy, but what
Yeah.
about the sort of information that's coming out, or the questions that people have about whether or not there are any contraindications of taking the vaccine, i.e., the list of ingredients in it, so that, okay, I may be allergic to chemical
Insulin,
X,
or
or
yeah.
whatever it is there.
Yeah.
It has been
That's
said.
Yeah. Theoretically there's still a possibility, but if you were to look at the formula, it's just salt, water, salts, and a few salts, and typically nothing else in the formulation, apart from the formulation from the antigen, which is a COVID-19.
Right. Okay. So the conversations about the list of ingredients perhaps is misinformation that's being put out there.
Yeah, I think misinformation. People are worrying too much about it because several cases, like death cases, like in the case of,
Yeah.
Pfizer in Norway, that vaccine was given to very frail elderly above 80, and we don't know exactly what was the condition. But basically, when like I said, a very stringent selection of the volunteers. Like you look at the very healthy 18 to 60-year-old volunteers, and in any medical condition, these people will be eliminated. But when any vaccine producer confirm the safety of the vaccine to certain age group, I believe they have done some data to convince the regulators that they've got enough data to support the safety. But that particular case in Norway, that I do not have access to.
Well, I suppose it's true for all sorts of, whether it be medications or vaccinations or even herbal supplements. What works for me might not work for you, might give you an upset stomach to
possible.
More serious issues, right? So
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, part of the acceptance of this vaccine is we have to wait and see, to some degree, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so finally, in your opinion, what would you say is sort of, I understand we need things to change, and the vaccine is part of that solution, right? should we or should we not vaccinate, and why?
We should be vaccinated. I mean, especially those healthy. Like I say, I've been repeating it. The clinical trial was done extensively and carefully, especially those population who are healthy at the age of 18 to 60. Those shouldn't be worried about unless you have certain medical condition that you should talk to your doctor before receiving it. But those who are healthy, I mean, most of the cases now like asymptomatic, basically they're very healthy, so they
So,
shouldn't worry about receiving it.
right. So like for the elderly then who have other complications, like what would constitute a clash and therefore not, like who would you advise not to get the vaccine and why?
Oh, I wouldn't advise because they have to see their own doctor and see how whether their body could accept that, whether they have medical condition, assess their safety.
Generally, though, I mean, if you've got high blood pressure, if you've got diabetes,
Diabetes, chronic illness.
should you, if you have any of those and you're already on medication for all those, would the vaccine kind of clash with whatever meds you're taking, or they should be taking the vaccine?
There's still a race, like I said. The best is to visit your doctor and talk to them and see how serious you are.
Would you though? Would you, if the clinical trials, would you volunteer?
No, because I've got a 13-year-old, and
Right.
as a single mom, like, if I'm like kaput for
Right.
whatever
That's true.
reason, but I'd nominate you.
Yeah. So, Dr.
I'm
Badru,
sure your wife wouldn't mind.
should I be?
Can we get JD into the clinical
Yeah.
trials?
I really think so.
Could you put in a good
why
word?
not? Why worry about that? Because I mean, throughout your life, you've been receiving all kinds of vaccine, like from since you were a baby, you've been
BCG
getting
and whatnot.
MMR, BCG, and you were healthy.
No,
It wasn't
actually-
like you had a fever.
No, Dr. Badrul, I meant like, could I just like pay you with cake or something to get him on the test, on the trials? Not easy legible or easy good for him, but yeah, can we get him on there? That was the question.
Yeah, I
Okay,
agree.
so I got one more question. Have you been vaccinated? And if you have, what did you take? Which one?
If I have a choice, I would support the Sinovac.
Have you had it?
No, we haven't, because they haven't been approved. It'll be very soon to be filed. And once it's available, I have no hesitation to take it because the technology is proven. You've been getting poliovirus vaccine, and is the entire the disease been eradicated using the same technology. This is proven very safe since 30, 40 years ago.
So wait, you said you would pick the Sinovac one? Why
Yes.
that one?
Because
Yeah, like I said, it's a proven technology.
It's new, right?
proven
It's not,
technology.
it's not a proven technology. The same technology that we use it
So
for.
the rest are
So if you were to explain to the layperson like myself the difference between old technology, Sinovac, why you're more confident in that versus the other kind, if you were to explain it to someone who has no concept of medical stuff whatsoever, what analogies would you use?
No, I wouldn't say that I prefer one after another, but I'm supporting Sinovac because that Pharmanaga is partnered in
Oh, I
partnership
see,
with
right.
Sinovac. Yeah, for that
They
reason.
make it. He's got to
yeah.
say that, JD. Sorry about that. Put you on the spot.
Yeah.
But going back to okay, the second half of the question, which is mRNA and all that kind of stuff is just gobbledygook to the normal person on the street. How would you explain the two different kinds of mechanisms, for want of a better word, that work in vaccines? How are they different?
The only difference is you still need to have that protein or the unit of the vaccine introduced to your body. Either you make it outside in the case of the whole virus, which is manufactured and inactivated and introduced into your body, or you deliver the code for that virus and get yourself to synthesize it for our own body recognition. That's the only difference.
So basically, you either put a dead snake in you, or you have the snake's skin in you, as an analogy. Like
kind of
terrible analogy. Sorry. It's like a dead jelly baby or just a jelly baby outside, which
No,
haven't
I
got
suppose
jelly babies.
would it be right, like the mRNA one is like you're telling you're telling your forces, get ready. The enemy looks like this. you need to fight it.
Like a
right?
police sketch.
So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But the other one is you're kind of infecting yourself slightly with the live virus, but then you're like your body is like, come on, kick into place. You need to fight this. Is that how it works?
Yeah.
Right. Maybe
Some-
we'll leave it at that. Hey, JD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just trying. Yeah, because
Yeah.
for laymen, it's they get too many mRNA and live culture and everything. They get it.
Yeah, you
confused.
can just imagine something like thumb drive that you stick it to your computer that you can open the file.
Oh,
That
wait,
is
which one's the thumb drive?
the mRNA.
Oh,
Okay, and the other one's what?
The other one maybe like you connected another system so that the yeah.
No, the other one's like an
The
app
other one more
inside.
like
it's
an
like a
app.
slightly infected
Yeah.
system, and then you need to try and put in your antivirus.
something like
It's
that.
like running an app or
Yeah.
something like that. So we got a thumb drive and an app.
Okay, cool.